How's it going, everybody? Happy New Year. Season 3 of Cobra Kai has finally released on Netflix, and I have a lot to say about it, so I wanted to make this video to make kind of my general review of this season and compare it to the previous two. So if you were a fan of the first two seasons, you're gonna like this one because it's more or less the same stuff. You know, it's a lot of the same cringy but like witty and like cheesy dialogue. It still has that charm to it, even though it has a bigger budget, and it's very obvious that it has a bigger budget now that it's been picked up by Netflix. And that's one of the more interesting things about this season now, and one of the things that has intrigued a lot of people, because the first two seasons, if you weren't aware, were YouTube originals. The show got canceled, and then that was that. Netflix picked it up, and all of a sudden Cobra Kai is like this huge thing because it's been given the exposure that the show deserves, and a lot of people now have been really excited to see what happens next. At the end of season 2, a lot happened. There was a huge Cobra Kai versus Miyagi-Do fight at the school, and Miguel, he ended up in a coma, you know, broke his back, the whole entire thing. And I was really interested to see how this transition from YouTube to Netflix would play out. And it doesn't make that big of a difference in terms of quality. It still has, you know, the core like Cobra Kai feel, you know. It does feel very campy, very cheesy still, but there is a lot more world exploration. This season the show has been given a lot more opportunities in terms of being able to input certain characters from previous movies. That being said, a bigger budget doesn't always necessarily equal better. And in this case, I have to say Cobra Kai season 3 has kind of disappointed me in some areas because it's just a lot of the same as season 2, season 1. I'm not going to get into heavy spoilers or like massive crazy revelations or anything like that. I'm just going to go over like the general story and what I think could have been better. The beginning of the season picks up right where season 2 left off. It's sort of just showing the aftermath of Miguel and everything that happened to him and how everyone's dealing with that. This season there's a lot more characters for the show to juggle, and that really shows. You can really tell that they are having a hard time at kind of balancing, you know, the different storylines, and I feel like sometimes the main storylines that you want to follow are kind of overshadowed or put off to the side, where you could honestly focus on those more. In particular, Miguel, I was really interested to see how he would deal with trying to recover, with trying to come back really from this terrible injury and this terrible accident, and same with Johnny. And we do get snippets of those, but we also need to have time for other characters to get their screen time and to get their development. There's some characters that get a lot more screen time than you think deserve, or you honestly, personally, I don't really care about some of these characters getting this extra screen time, because I care about, you know, the main story of this Cobra Kai. You know, it's Cobra Kai versus Miyagi-Do. This season, however, it's not Cobra Kai versus Miyagi-Do. It's not that cut and dry. Cobra Kai this season is the bad guy. There's no point in this season where Cobra Kai is good. Johnny from the start is done with Cobra Kai. It's just Kreese in Cobra Kai now. Johnny's given that up, and so is Daniel Larusso. He's no longer teaching karate. After the school fight, they gave up teaching, and the whole community kind of just frowned upon karate. In terms of the production value, it does look better, and a lot of the choreography, you can tell, has been improved from the previous seasons because they have a better budget, they have more time to practice, I assume. So you can tell in some of the fight sequences that it's a little bit more less choppy, you know, because in the previous seasons you could tell a lot of times someone would do a kick and it would cut like 50 times. And this season you can actually see someone do an actual kick and actually like spin around or something, and you can just tell when more time was devoted to, you know, certain fight sequences. There's a lot more product placement in this season, but it's not necessarily like thrown in your face. There's a point where there's a ton of product placement, but it actually serves the story, so it's not that big of a deal. Why am I disappointed with this season? It's because they played it safe, and it's very obvious that they played it safe. In October of 2020, Cobra Kai was renewed for a season 4. I feel like after getting picked up by Netflix, they decided, okay, let's actually play this safe and do more of what worked last time, and then maybe future seasons we can actually like do, you know, more experimental stuff and take more risks. Because I feel like there's so many like copy and paste scenes in this season from season 2. There's certain characters that get along and you're like, finally you got along, please stay that way. The next scene they're like, I should have known not to trust you. And it's like, dude, we're doing this again, are you serious? And that happens several times. It's very soap opera-y, where it's like, again, these two people, they make up, they're friends, and then someone walks in and they're like, how could you? And it's like, oh my god, we can't have a moment where just there's peace. There's always like a good thing happening, and then someone like just shooting it out of the water. And I guess that's the show. You know, there's a lot of conflict. All the characters are still stubborn. Some characters, they just don't want to see things a certain way, and that's something that the show actually acknowledges, that there's always a side to every story. There's three sides to every story. You know, two people's opposing opinions, and then the actual truth. And I think that's the main lesson of this season, to be able to see from someone else's point of view, to be able to understand why someone is thinking the way they are. You're not always going to be right in every situation, but it's your ability to try to understand and try to, you know, come to an agreement and a compromise with people that you disagree with. That being said, there are some characters that they really want you to sympathize with, and they really want to redeem certain characters, and it's like you can't really redeem this character. It is interesting to see why some villains are the way they are, but when you spend so much time about it and then you don't necessarily incorporate it into the story itself, it kind of feels like it was tacked on just to, you know, fill in the runtime and just be, you know, cool, I guess. I don't know. It just felt disconnected from the story itself. It never really played a part into like any of the other characters. Halfway through the season, there's this big problem amongst the karate community, I guess you could say, and it's presented as a big deal for these characters. So eventually, when these characters fight to fix this problem and they actually end up succeeding, that thing that they were trying to save never comes back in this season. It never plays a part at the end of it. It leads you to believe that the end of this season is going to have to deal with the thing that they saved, and it has nothing to do with that at all. And then you realize, wow, that's going to be in season 4. There's a lot of things that they set up in this season that is just basically an advertisement for season 4. The end of the season literally is just one big cliffhanger, which I was not expecting. I was expecting the end to this storyline, but it's honestly only the beginning, which is actually super exciting. You know, we're getting another season, we're getting more of this story. However, my main concern is, what more can you do if not the same thing over and over and over? These characters, they get along, they argue, and then they fight, and then wait, now they're friends again, and then that whole entire thing. Luckily, at the end of this season, you get some characters that seem to be permanently redeemed, and that's going to be interesting to see moving forward, because there's not necessarily going back for these certain characters in a good way. There's some really nice and surprising nostalgic moments and characters being brought back that I don't think they would have been able to do in the previous 2 seasons, but since they have a bigger budget, they're able to, you know, bring these characters back in. And honestly, it's just really cool to see, you know, this universe actually really be brought back to life, and seeing what these other characters and what they've been up to, essentially. It's really cool, and it's really rewarding if you did watch, you know, the original Karate Kid movies, specifically Karate Kid 2. If you haven't seen this season, go watch Karate Kid 2 before you watch season 3. I like how they're still able to use clips from the original movies. At times, there was a part where I was like, I'm just straight up watching a clip from Karate Kid 2. Like, this is like a 3-minute clip from that movie, which I'm fine with if it actually has something to do with the story. For me personally, I feel Cobra Kai season 3 is just Cobra Kai season 2 on a bigger budget. So if you like this series, you're gonna like this season. It's a lot of fun. Cobra Kai doesn't really take itself too seriously, and I can respect that. It knows that at certain points it is ridiculous, and they make a point to point out the ridiculousness, which I love, because it's like, that's stupid, and then someone points out that's stupid, and it's like, yeah, it is. And it's not necessarily like a stupid part of the story, it's just something stupid that someone does. And that's part of the charm of this series. It's very cheesy, and in its tone, it does still feel like, you know, in 1980s movie, just because of how cheesy some of the villains are. Kreese is still the cheesiest, most over-the-top villain, and it's so annoying, but it's fun to watch. I can't help but feel that literally all we needed to complete this whole entire storyline was one more episode, and it didn't give us that. After the very last episode ended, I felt very underwhelmed, just because personally I felt that there wasn't much else to offer in terms of like this story. Like a lot of the main things have been, you know, solved. Is there's just one last thing that they need to get rid of, and I feel like they literally just need one more episode to do that, because it just feels like the next season is going to be just a stretched out version of that one episode that they need to just fix this one last thing. And I don't think this is the type of show where you can just like make 6 seasons out of it. It's a very compact story. It's a very, like, there is a problem, and it's going to be fixed. And once this problem is fixed, what else does the show have to offer? Are they just going to keep postponing? Like, no, this is the bad guy and he's gonna stay the bad guy and just keep getting away with things. Because once Kreese is gone, this show just came out, which is why I don't want to like spoil anything in this video. So the main thing I'm just gonna leave you with, if you haven't seen it, is stay tuned for season 4. That's basically how I feel right now. If I had to give this season a rating out of 10, it would probably be a 7. It's not like that great, it's not like mind-blowing, but it is still enjoyable, and it's still Cobra Kai as you know it. So yeah, I think if you're a fan of Cobra Kai, you'll like this season, and you'll have a lot more questions and anticipation for season 4. So I hope you guys like this review of Cobra Kai season 3. If you have any more things that you would like me to review, just leave it in the comments, I guess, and I'll try to get to it. So yeah, that's enough out of me. I'll see you next time.